And welcome everyone to another episode of Talking Marijuana. I'm here with the hosts. I am one of them. My name is. We've been trying to get Yami, who is one of the hosts, to be laughing today, and here she goes, starting really good. I'm Barry Kramer. I am the patient operator of California Patients Alliance, a GLACA accredited dispensary here in Los Angeles, and my co-hosts.
My name is Yami Bolaños, and I am the patient operator for Pure Life Alternative Wellness Center on La Cienega. I'm also the founder and president of the Greater Los Angeles Collectors Alliance. Mark of Excellence in Medical Marijuana in the City of Los Angeles since 2006. And with us today is Michael Backus.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
That's Michael.
That's Michael.
I'm the one who's talking. Yeah.
Michael is our go-to science guy. We've had him on the show before. He is just the most amazing wealth of information that we've come across here in Los Angeles to tell us about on a molecular level, what's going on with cannabis. And he is just super knowledgeable, and we're so happy that he's here today.
Very happy.
And also we have...
And Dan Gabriel, I'm here too.
No. Let's tell you who Dan is. Dan's an amazing comedian. We were just in here laughing hysterically before we started, and then just stopped
And
it
now
all.
laughter ends.
Now laughter ends.
Now
You did the
it's
most
over.
amazing 5 minutes you'll never see.
Good times are over.
And Don's not with us today because he's in Belize. So, anyway.
So...
It's just the four of us.
Yeah, so today it's just the four of us. Welcome to our show, Talking Marijuana. We're going to hit headlines around the world today. We're going to go global. And then we're going to sit and talk with Mike about what's going on science-wise with cannabis and where we're headed in the future. So let's start out with some articles that have gone on. I was going to get my glasses, but they're not there. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so let's start in... outside the U.S., a couple big stories that were going on. One is in Canada. Canada has implemented a new medical marijuana program. They have had a medical marijuana program longer than almost any other country, I think, that exists. And they're going to revamp it, and it just is starting this week. They're rolling it out. And basically it is going to be government-run medical marijuana. You will order your marijuana from the government, and it will be delivered to your house from the government.
According to whatever's wrong with you.
According to whatever's wrong with you. So this is a pretty new look at a way to distribute marijuana. They are taking applications for people to grow the state-run marijuana farms.
Are they allowed to grow in Canada?
Yeah. Until now, medical pot has been produced only by individual growers who are not allowed to supply more than 2 people each. Starting this April, those small-time growers will have their licenses nullified at large, and large privately owned weed farms. I love when they throw in. Why they always say weed. They always go back to that in as a reporter, and it bugs me. But large privately owned cannabis farms, including a former Hershey factory in Ontario, will replace them. And under the new regulations, Canadian residents can have a doctor fill out and sign what looks like a pretty simple form, after which they can receive pot to treat their medical conditions for 1 year.
Free?
It's not free. Once the system's up and running, the price of ganja could fall as low as $3 per gram, said the senior health official. Right now, I think the private market keeps it at around $10 a gram, is a sort of norm, and they're hoping once they get the state-run thing, the price will come down for medical patients. And this is somewhat in anticipation of legalization as well. So, legalization is starting to take hold in a lot of
places in the world.
And so they're gearing up.
This is a much different model of a way to do it.
I don't understand something though. If you're an individual, you can't grow your own pot anymore.
You won't be able to do that anymore.
So just only the large companies can do that.
Only
So it's gone to big money.
It's gone to big money
taken
in
out of the
Canada.
hands of the people.
Absolutely. But
wow.
the big money,
It's worked for cheese in the
big
United
money
States.
is not necessarily.
You can't make your own cheese?
No, you can make your own cheese, but government cheese, I mean, it's... Yeah.
I do like government cheese.
Government
It's
cheese.
really good.
Good.
It's cheap. And
But you can't deny me the right to
yellow.
make my own cheese. I don't know how, and I'm never gonna, but I want the right.
You're an American. You have that right until they take
I think
it away.
what you'll see a grab for large companies coming in to do large-scale cultivation, but I think then eventually it'll roll back. It's the same thing happened in post-prohibition. What they did was they clamped down on home brewing and home winemaking, and then they relaxed it. And I think the same thing's going to happen. I mean, it's inevitable that people people will be allowed to cultivate their own cannabis
Right.
small scale. The difference will be, will you be able to sell that cannabis? And I think the thing is that you do need a regulatory environment, so if somebody's
Absolutely.
sick, they get access to something that's good.
Yeah. Which is what I hope this sort of goes down the path of, which is to regulate medical marijuana, and then hopefully allow for small growers and
Recreational
your
growers.
own growers at some point. And then the recreational marijuana will have its own sort of system.
inevitable.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
inevitable. And it is growing around the world. The other article that I read this week was that Romania is legalizing medical marijuana, and the headline is Romania legalizes medical marijuana, becomes 10th EU country to permit therapeutic use. And what was interesting to me about that is that's kind of how it went here in the States. It was like it was building blocks. California started it, then we had the second and third state that came along, and we did I remember doing the countdown. Oh, this year we've got number 10 and number 11 coming on board. So this is huge because the international treaties that bind us to not having legal marijuana are now being questioned.
When different
Crumbling,
countries,
When different
ones,
countries come on board and there's interest.
maybe we
this
should
way.
rethink this as
Well,
a
it's
group.
like the domino effect right now. It's just one right after another. They're all falling, in Uruguay just went legal too, and the Czech Republic is also thinking about going legal. So I mean, it's
People
like
are
the
listening.
domino
They're
effect
all
right
getting,
now.
but they're all getting pressure from the United Nations, right? To not.
To not. At this point, that's still happening, but I think the more and more, just as here in the States, when you now have 20 states that have legal marijuana for medicinal use, that's changing the conversation about legal use as well. It's what everyone was scared about, that medical marijuana was
Would
just
go
a
to
foot in the door
legalization.
to legalize. It's not really, if you look at the workings of it, that's not really what's happened. They've happened concurrently, medical marijuana and legalization. But the opposers of legalization always look to medical marijuana and say they're just trying to get it legal.
They're just trying to
That's
get
all
their
they're
foot in the
trying to
door
do.
with
Separate,
medical.
but
Yeah.
it's a
But
separate
it's a separate,
fight.
It is a
it's a
separate
separate
fight.
fight. And like Michael says, we need strict regulations for medical marijuana that's going out to patients who have compromised immune systems
Yeah.
and all kinds of things.
They
We
can't
really
be
need to have a
smoking
regulatory
moldy
system.
marijuana.
Exactly,
If
especially
they
if they're
get a
sick.
bad batch, then it's just going to make
Yeah.
them worse. It's going to make the whole system look bad.
Someone like myself that has no immune system because of my liver transplant, I could smoke moldy marijuana and get sick and die.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very important that regulation and regulation for the safety of marijuana be put into
But
effect.
it seems strange that the government in Canada is now going to be the dealers. You're going to call up the 1-800 number and complain about your
remember
weed.
they have health care there,
Exactly,
there
it's
too,
how they
and,
work.
and I think they're trying to just blend that in. I don't know necessarily if it's going to be government cheese up there. I know some of the people who are going for permits in Canada, and what they're trying to bring to bear is the best practices possible
Absolutely.
to make the highest quality cannabis. And it's really, really hard. I mean, everybody thinks, you just grow it. But man, it's
I know,
a
it's really hard.
lot.
But in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, don't they have that where they have medical and recreational?
And
medical
actually,
is
and their medical, I mean, honestly, not to knock Dutch medical marijuana, but it's not that great. I mean, what they did basically was they took Jack Herrera, which is a Sensi seed variety, and they grow it and they rebranded it as Bedrocan, and it's okay. But their grow rooms are, I mean, we've seen them. They're not that clean. They're not.
Right.
I think Canada's going to eat the Dutch lunch on this one.
And the Dutch, they're wearing wooden shoes. What do they know?
Yeah, and the
Yeah, but
click
they-
clock.
Even more than that, though, Michael. When you say they took Jack Herrera in Netherlands, and that's what they're using, so that is such a limitation to the patients as to the medicine that they can use. Is that what you're saying? That they can only get this one
have other
strain?
strains over there.
No,
They
they
have
have,
the competition.
but there are only 4 in Dutch pharmacies.
We're talking about
So
legal,
they're real medical.
Marijuana that is given to the
marijuana,
patients for
not
free.
just
But why
all-
is
No, they buy it.
Wouldn't-
we buy it. I thought it was free.
No, it's €10 a gram, I believe.
But wouldn't the medical community up there dip into what's going on with the recreational community just as far as finding a better strain?
Right, but what happens is that if you want cannabis of known potency and known consistency as far as we know it's clean,
Got it.
because what they do there to make sure the cannabis in the pharmacies is clean is they gamma irradiate it. they basically blast it with gamma rays to kill everything on it, so that there's no mold, so there's no bacteria.
Isn't that how the Hulk was made?
I was
Exactly.
just thinking about that.
Exactly. Matter of fact,
I love
the
that.
famous Dutch Hulk Kush.
What does it do to the plant? I mean,
Well, it probably hurts a few of the terpenes on the plant, but not much. Is the
Not
answer. It's
much.
ionizing radiation. By the time it gets to you, the particles that hit that plant are like
Well, long.
100 million miles past Jupiter. So, yeah, it's fine. There's no
So
residual
it's kind of
radiation.
spacey herb.
Yeah, it's really,
spacier.
exactly.
Makes you spacier. than
Makes you
most.
spacey.
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap that a little bit, medical marijuana, when it's state-run, when it's government-run, my feeling is it's going to be, yes, a good product and a clean product for the patient, but it's going to limit the product that you're able to get. We know that marijuana offers such a huge spectrum. All kinds of strains offer so many minute little differences. That's what seems to me the conundrum in trying to make it a, FDA drug, FDA-approved drug.
It's
is that
why-
there's
it's
just
why-
so many complications.
It's why it will never be an FDA-approved drug.
Right.
It'll be more, it's more likely to be over the counter.
Right, and probably regulated through
prescription.
more of an herbal
Mm-hmm.
organization, or like who regulates at this point, like chamomile and herbs and things that you would get. Though that seems like it would be
The
more
government does that, but they basically just set quality standards.
right.
So, and those quality standards, you say you can't use certain pesticides, you can't have certain molds, and it just makes everything kind of consistent. and clean.
Cool. So I'm hoping that we get that kind of consistency in the future, and that these are really good signs to see governments getting involved in legalizing marijuana use for
Yeah.
patients
And
for sure. And then, the natural progression is once you realize that it's helping people for patients, the whole myth of it being the evil weed will dissipate, hopefully.
Go away.
Unfortunately, we still have to wait
And
for
even
that.
if the grows in Netherlands aren't that clean, there's government grows in Netherlands. That's a whole lot better
Right.
than here in the United States when there's no government grows. So for the patient.
Well, there's a government grow here. You just can't get access to
Well.
it. Yeah.
Right, and that's where they're, and is it good?
Yeah.
Is it clean? Is it?
Yeah, it's good and it's clean, but the thing is, there's not very much of it. I don't think they even grew this year. They don't even grow every year. And what they do is they stockpile it, and they make joints for the few patients who still are on the
Turning a few
IND.
And are they
Left
still
alive,
doing?
right?
Are they doing any research with that?
Oh yeah, phenomenal research. Yeah, but the thing is,
but
we
it's
don't
with
get
that
access to
herb.
it.
It's with that.
Well, no,
old-
they grow a lot of different things that we don't know about, and they do a lot of techniques, and they do a lot of things that they're not sharing.
And isn't there any way that you can find out about what they're doing? There's no Freedom of Information Act. And
Probably just nobody, I think, has exercised that at all. I think there's probably a lot of, they publish a lot of really interesting papers. I mean, people in Canada who are setting up these grows, people in California who are doing medical, people all over
People
the
in
world
Israel.
are reading
we're definitely
what
doing-
comes out of University of Mississippi because they do great research.
Couldn't they sway a lot of people's opinions by super researching the CBDs and the medical benefits and
Who could sway?
just the researchers? Couldn't they?
They are. I mean, the thing is that increasingly you're hearing a lot of talk about these alternative cannabinoids like CBD,
I think it started with
THCV.
Sanjay publicly talking about the CBDs.
Very much so.
I mean, we've all been talking about CBDs for many years now, and within the cannabis community, people have known about the medicinal value of some of the other cannabinoids that are in the plant, but Sanjay Gupta really blew the lid off of that. I know that just because of patients that are coming into my
Now.
dispensary now and
Asking
saying,
for
"Oh,
CBDs.
I want to know about the CBD that I've
Asking
heard
for
on the
questions, yeah.
television." And once he started that became the prominent medical research that was outlined in many articles that we read and talk about here all the time.
I mean, it's funny about CBD too, because like at LAPCG, where I consult, we have 4 different varieties, but we chose them for their ratio of THC versus CBD because that changes the effect.
Absolutely.
So we have basically a pure CBD strain, and then we have a THC strain that has a little bit of CBD in it, and we have everything in between. And what's cool is you can choose it for what you're trying to get as your outcome.
We've talked a little bit about the differences in CBD marijuana in the past on the program. We're gonna let's take a little break now because I'd really like to get into that a little bit, and we'll come back and we'll talk some more about CBDs and some more about what's going on in the news, and we'll see you after the break.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Podcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Talking Marijuana. We are continuing our conversation on public perception that you can get marijuana that has no THC, just CBD, and that's going to help you medically. That could be true, but it's only partially true. Am I correct? That there's some sort of symbiosis between all of the cannabinoids that work together as a whole plant to help your medical condition. So you don't want to just take out everything. Like Marinol does, just takes out everything.
You can't just extract the CBD and put it in pill form.
Oh, no, you absolutely could. And honestly, it probably will make the basis of a really great herbal anti-anxiety drug at some point.
That's
like
awesome.
The great thing about CBD, what I don't think Gupta talked about too much is like what CBD does to you. Like the average person, if they smoke a joint of pure CBD med or close to pure, you don't get high, but you get a head change, which is interesting. You get and it kills anxiety like Raid kills cockroaches. I mean, it really will knock down anxiety. And it's fascinating. But if you use too much CBD, you get what's called mental sedation. What it means is you're just kind of thick. Imagine...
A couch lock?
No, I got you.
No, it's just a little on the slow side. Yeah.
Talking slower, thinking
you can't. It's just like you're just a
slower.
little thick. It's the best way to describe it. But it's real. But medicinally, the idea whole plants and all these different combinations allow you to tune the outcome. It allows you to pick a med that gets you where you really want to go, and that's because remember, everything had CBD in it pre-1979.
Right.
All right, and almost all the great cannabis strains, the Dylan and the Beatles and your grandparents told you about, I went to Woodstock.
Right.
They all had CBD in them. All hash is almost
Thai stick.
All hash
all
around the
old.
world is half CBD. So Moroccan, Afghani, Lebanese hash from back in the day, they were all 50-50 THC CBD. And I think that was a good thing because I think that the neuroprotective aspects and all the things that CBD brings to the table are worth bringing back.
And then we bred them out
Yeah,
in order to get crystally beautiful THC?
No, just accidentally.
Really?
What happens is when you select marijuana plants individually, you have a tendency to select them towards high THC content.
Right.
When you do them as field crops, you have a tendency to select them for 50-50 THC CBD. It's just the way it works. It's like growing corn to be beautiful corn is
Or
going to
feed.
feed.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And so the thing is that we just accidentally bred it towards THC for its psychoactive drug content. The plant normally is kind of half and half.
So most of, if I'm correct, most of the marijuana that we smoke these days, although let's say before last year or the year before, because CBDs really have started to be coming back in the last 5 years, people are breeding them back in. But most CBD content of most herb was somewhere in the 0.1 to 0.9.
Which is ironic because that's the THC content of hemp. And it's not an accident because hemp strains produce CBD and drug strains produce THC. And so what happens is that the numbers you see for THC in hemp are like the CBD numbers in drug cannabis.
Interesting.
So it's just, I mean, it's no accident.
So for our listeners
You
out
could
there,
get really healthy smoking rope.
Yeah.
yeah,
And what's really funny is the CBD strains, they smell like rope. They taste like rope.
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Actually,
really
they taste less than rope, but this is a family show.
yeah.
A family show
Is
about
this really a
marijuana.
family show?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see families gathered around the computer around the world talking marijuana.
We've heard recently that we have more than 4 listeners, which
Yeah,
is
that
what
was
we've always
interesting.
expected.
That's
so
fantastic.
I'm super excited for everybody out there that's tuning
It's
in.
one family sitting around.
Exactly. They had two
Now we're
kids
one
since we
big
started.
family, and this is the family show you've tuned into. Well, let's hit some more headlines and go around. I'm sure we'll come back to CBDs because they are super exciting to talk about. I heard this week that the TSA might allow passengers to board plane with marijuana. Now, that sounds exciting. When I read a little deeper into this, they're definitely not putting that down in writing anywhere. They're not saying you can.
I've been told that at least in California that this. I read a newspaper article that it was saying that it's just don't be a dick about it. Like
So,
as long as you're not noisy about it.
I know.
Great sign right before
Yeah,
the
just
screening.
listen.
Don't be a
Just
dick.
listen. Don't be an asshole.
I know people that have flown from Sacramento and Oakland to Los Angeles, from Los Angeles to Oakland and Sacramento, that carry medicine with them. They, the people have said, "What is this?" And they say, "This is medicine." And they say, "Do you have a letter?" "Yes." And they just let them go on their way. So I think that if you're lucky and it doesn't smell too much and they don't ask you about it, you could probably maybe get away with it. But I wouldn't recommend that anybody do that because I've also heard somebody got busted the other day because they had a couple of joints in their pocket and getting on the airplane.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
It's-
what
it
the
depends.
article boils down to is basically if you get a good TSA agent.
Yeah.
It's an unspoken rule in the TSA right now. The TSA's job is to protect the citizens from
They're looking
from
for
danger.
danger.
They're looking
not
for
there
guns
to
and
enforce
bombs.
federal drug laws. Of
But
course, if
there's
you're
a cop 10 feet from them
but
who
it's
they
up
can
to
go,
their
hey,
it is up to their
Hank,
discretion.
their discretion.
It's up to their discretion whether or not they.
So an idea then, you show up at the airport wearing your Volcano t-shirt, you look for the TSA person who smiles at you, that's where you go.
They don't let you pick the one you go through. Nothing looks sketchier than, I don't want to go through this one because you look weird. I'm going to go over through that other one. They're going to go, I'm going to
Are
stick
they
a
going to
finger
let
in
me
your
like
butt.
plug in my Volcano in business class?
Absolutely, there's a lot of new things you can use electronically on your.
And I heard they're using the vape pens on the airplane. No big deal. Like
I've had a patient who used the vape pen, but he is wheelchair bound, seriously ill patient, and I don't think anybody was going to stop him from using a vapor pen the time he did it, and he did it discreetly. And I wouldn't suggest going that far on a plane because there's other people on the plane. You're in an enclosed space, thousands and thousands of feet above the.
Are you allowed to smoke a nicotine vape?
No.
No, not anymore. Oh, you mean like the vape?
On a plane?
The vape
I don't
cigarettes?
think so.
No.
Okay.
Southwest
Stop you.
specifically says no. I've heard them say it.
So basically what this article was saying is that now that there's 20 states that are legal for medical marijuana, they're a federal agency, so they still have to, and federally it is still illegal to have any amount of marijuana. But they are downgrading their efforts to bust you unless you're an asshole.
It's a waste of resources
It is.
and time for
It
them
is.
for them to hassle you over a little bit of weed. No, so you get somebody with a stick up their ass who decides
the
that
problem.
weed ruined their life and
Right.
earlier and has some other shit.
So it's
involved.
basically up to
They
that
can-
TSA
yeah.
agent that you're
Park
going to go to.
Service
but-
has been making a lot of money ticketing people for a long time.
Oh, Yosemite was the leading culprit of ticketing.
And certainly if you're
marijuana
flying
smokers.
from a state that allows legal marijuana
You can't.
to a state that doesn't allow legal marijuana,
Then
you should be on a
smart
higher
about that,
alert.
yeah.
You
And if
can't
you're flying
smoke
internationally.
weed
And
in
don't do it at all.
Yosemite.
No.
Well, Yosemite's
no.
closed right now, thank you,
Yeah.
federal government, but no,
But
you
it
can't.
had the highest number of tickets given last year for marijuana Yosemite was the highest number of tickets given out by park rangers. For,
And that's a good little revenue source.
Yeah. Speaking of revenue sources, they've opened up a farmers market in Seattle. This past week was the first week of a marijuana farmers market. It had all kinds of things to smoke with, things to smoke, edibles,
And it was
and it was all marijuana, and it's in basically starting to test and push what's
see
legal
what
in
happens.
Seattle.
Let's see what happens.
The people that arranged this market are ready for the fight. They feel it's legal in their state. They're ready to, say why they think this should be legal. And it seemed to go fairly peacefully this past week. And
there was a open air market, farmers market, a thing in Riverside for a while where they were bringing their wares too, and it was all like you said, it was all bud and utensils and stuff like that. And it was like by invitation only, but it existed.
Wow.
And so this is just their copying.
There's one in Sacramento for a long time.
Yes,
too.
there has been one.
yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
It got busted, but
It got busted.
And the one in Riverside they stopped because before they got busted.
so-
I'm actually performing in Washington State this weekend.
Oh,
Not
wow.
in Seattle, but in Richland, which is the Tri-Cities area. And I'm curious of how it's gonna go
I'm sure
when
you'll
I'm there.
find out when you get
do I
there.
just go to a storefront? Do I still gotta?
No, it's
like,
not set up in Washington
set up
or
yet.
Colorado, at least until January 1st. They're not going to have anything in place. So right now, there is nowhere that you can legally go to buy the marijuana.
Yeah.
But
But
there
if
are
I meet
places that
someone
are selling
cool,
it.
there's gonna be less of a
hassle.
Yeah.
I think as an entertainer coming in and smoking a
I
joint,
know.
you're
I'm
not
not
going to get
worried.
hassled too much
I'm not.
in Washington
I'm not worried.
State. I'd worry more about
Here
your
comes
set
the LA
than
boy.
about whether or not you're going to get busted.
They're probably more worried about giving you the appropriate strain because
Maybe.
coming from LA, they know that you've smoked the best pot in the world because this is where it's at.
The
get
Pacific
some letters from our
Northwest
50,000
is
viewers on
pretty
that.
They can hold
great.
their own. Yeah,
For
they
the
can hold
Pacific
their own.
Northwest,
And it's
that's what
nice to
they're
have something to
doing.
counter the caffeine because my old line about Seattle, so many places to drink coffee, so few reasons to stay awake.
Yeah.
So it's great. I think it's place a lot more fascinating.
A friend of mine used to have a joke about Seattle. He said they have a low murder rate, but the highest suicide rate because they're a do-it-yourself kind of people. They're not going to sit around and wait for you to kill them.
DIY.
But it's legal there now. Less people are going to kill themselves. There's something to stay alive for at the moment, so that's good. Let's see what else came up. We had an article that talked about how medical marijuana entrepreneurs in Colorado and Washington, it's about to be open market legal, and everyone's trying to figure out how they fit into that space. And that's a good word. And this says joint venture medical marijuana entrepreneurs seek out unusual backers. Why unusual? Because the federal government still won't allow us to have banking privileges. So you have legal states, legal marijuana, legal medical marijuana, but the people that sell you that marijuana or get that marijuana to you cannot have a bank account, cannot get a loan from a bank, cannot use credit from a bank.
They might as well make it legal to rob the dispensary.
So they're
No.
basically
What they're
getting
doing-
big business, restaurateurs, nightclub owners, friends, family, landscapers, former legislators, whoever has the money to back these entrepreneurs because these businesses are going forward. They are going to make money and they are going to be around. And so we need to start to get the banks back involved so that people that are running businesses can run legitimate businesses and not be sort of on the outskirts with
Shady
just
stuff, yeah.
cash business. That's not the way it
so
should be.
these laws, these anti-marijuana banking laws, come from Pete Stark passing 280E
280E.
back in the day, which was basically they busted a coke dealer. They found out the coke dealer had been deducting all these business expenses on his tax returns legally. And so they tried to close this loophole, say you can't deduct normal business expenses if your normal business is an illegal business. Now it's messed with everybody who's trying to do legitimate medical marijuana because it's forcing them to be a cash business which is the least accountable form of business.
Least accountable and least safe
Right.
And
for
least safe
everyone,
for everyone.
patients and operators alike, and communities
Right.
that these dispensaries are in. It's horrible.
And it's going to change, but it's really a pain because when you try to change this law and you take it to our wonderful functional Congress, they get the bill marked up as either a plus or a minus. Is it going to make money for the government, or is the government going to lose money? And guess what? It gets marked up as losing money if they let these businesses bank.
What?
It gets marked up because the
Wouldn't they get a cut?
federal agencies come in and take when they raid you, they take your money. They're making way more money out
That's
of
all
raiding.
plus.
It's all
That's
plus.
all. That's
Exactly.
all plus.
No.
So it
lose
gets
that.
marked.
But
So if they close the loophole and you get to take your legitimate business deductions, then it's a supposedly net loss for the government, and they say, oh, well, we can't pass that right now.
Right, we can't pass that right.
I mean, going to Washington and talking about anything to do with marijuana, it's like going to Mars.
Yeah.
They look at you like you're wearing the tinfoil hat.
And they don't understand what you're talking about. Like, you're not speaking English to them. Yeah, they look at you like...
But this is a problem that's come to a head, and it has to be solved because we have two states, Colorado and Washington, that are coming on board with legal sales of marijuana. And without, that's medical marijuana has definitely blossomed and exploded. There are here in Los Angeles we have over 1,000 dispensaries, illegal, I might add. So there has to be some way to use legitimate banking, and the fact that the government's in
insane for
charge.
them to wake up and get a clue.
Well, and also to watch where the money's going. Because, I mean, the truth is, right now, they have no idea where the
They
money's
have
going,
no-
and until they
it's so
change
ridiculous.
this, they're not going to have any idea where
So
the
I
money's
think
going.
Washington and Colorado has speeded up that process because January they are coming on board, and the federal government has already said to the Justice Committee in Washington that they're going to try to figure a workaround for this for banking services. And from what I've heard, Bank of America has stepped up and said we'll be Washington State's bank.
Yeah.
We will allow to do it. Now, good. Thank you so much,
By the
Bank
way,
of
PBA
America.
was the first bank to start shutting down accounts.
I know,
Yes,
they
they
absolutely were. Well, they're excited to get back into it. They know
That's
what
cool.
they've lost.
Cool.
We're going to take another break, come back, and continue to talk about some
Story
news
number
items.
2.
Story number 2. We're not getting far. This is a great conversation today. So we'll take a break now. We'll see you on the other side of the break, and catch you then.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey, everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Talking Marijuana with your hosts Yami and Barry and Dan, and our wonderful guest Mike Backus, who's about to talk about science, even though we've been talking about science pretty much the whole time through these articles. I have one more article I'm going to throw at you. I'm not going to let you talk about science today. You're going to have to do it my way, or it's not going to happen.
Barry's the host. If you've seen the Korean movie, the host.
I am your worst nightmare.
Yeah. He's got tentacles under the table.
And they're touching all of you. We got our first doctor convicted for improperly recommending medical marijuana. This is an issue that Yami and I, for certain, and through GLACA, the Greater Los Angeles Collectives Alliance, we've always talked about this issue. It's a back burner issue because there's not much we can do about it. But we've always wondered why here in the city of Los Angeles, we have a lot of doctors that literally their only job is to give recommendations for medical marijuana. It popped up when medical marijuana became legal here in California, and there's no problem to that as long as the doctors are legitimate And
It's an
let 'em do
easy
whatever
money
they wanna do.
maker
It's
if
easy
you're a
money maker
doctor.
for
You don't
doctors.
have to have marijuana in your place. You just have to have a
medical
pen.
practice because you did something wrong and you want to not practice for a while, so just so that you can cool off and not be a hot item, then you can just write
Really?
letters of
That's legal?
recommendation. Yes, and you don't have to be practicing. All you're doing is
Well,
writing letters
okay,
of
California-
recommendation. They got in
let's hold
trouble.
on. Yeah.
So California Medical Association has some rather unambiguous guidelines that they recommend, but are not, the physicians are
Not
not
enforced.
required, because the Medical Board of California has kind of punted on this issue. I mean, the Medical Board of California will send in undercover investigators to a doctor's office to make sure that they're delivering a certain standard of care in regards to the recommendation of medical marijuana. And several very high-profile,
Doctors.
supermodel type doctors in Los Angeles, without naming names, on billboards
Yeah.
from East Asia. Without specifically naming the doctors, they're currently under investigation for not providing standards of care and could end up losing
Their license.
Yeah.
And so we've always wondered, one of the problems in Los Angeles, the perceived problems and actual problems, is that neighborhood councils, neighborhoods have gotten very upset with the fact that it looks as if there's a bunch of 18-year-olds going into these dispensaries. That's one of the complaints about medical marijuana dispensaries here in Los Angeles, that we're not really medical, that we're just serving anybody. And we've always said, we as operators have no clout to be able to stop that. If someone comes into us with a medical recommendation from a legal doctor who's valid as a
Practitioner
Los
in the
Angeles
state.
practicing medicine in California, we don't have the right to say, you're 18, you can't come in. Or I can say you're 18, you can't come in, because my club is a 21 and over club, and that's one of the ways I get around this, not having to deal with it. But we don't have the right to just turn somebody away that already has a valid
Because they look healthy to you.
prescription.
No.
And the medical board has been very slow and lax on clamping down on doctors who are the first wave. You have to go get your recommendation. If you can't get a recommendation, you can't come into these clubs, our clubs. But if you have a recommendation, you can. So there's been no enforcement. We've always asked for enforcement in the 10 years that we've been fighting this in Los Angeles, and the city council says they have no ability to do anything.
And they don't.
And they don't. It is up to the medical board, and the medical board
The medical board doesn't, they don't have enforcement.
They don't have enforcement. They don't want to
And
screw
the
with their
only
doctors.
thing that we can do at the store is to do our due diligence, is call and make sure that it is a valid letter of recommendation, which the Glauca clubs do. But that's
Right.
the
Every
most
time
that
a
we
new
can
patient
do.
comes in, that patient's doctor is looked up in the California registry and
see if
made
they're
sure
still
that their
practicing.
Not all
license is
dispensaries
current.
do that.
Yeah.
I've been to ones where they go, all right, cool, come on in. Don't even
But that's all,
photocopy it or
that's
anything.
all we can
yeah.
do is our due diligence to make sure that it is a valid letter of recommendation, but we can't do any more than that.
Yeah.
Not where we're at. Now, we're the
Right.
first line, and we can't do any more than that. And it's interesting because you have patients coming in. For instance, the patients come in and they say, they just went to like a bowl event on the weekend, and they stood in line with 100 other people to get a letter of recommendation. Took them 2 minutes to get it, and they paid $40. How?
So that they could go to the Hollywood Bowl with a
No.
joint?
So that they can
One of these
get.
cannabis cups. Well, and
Yeah,
they-
the
Oh, the
bowls.
bowls, the
the
cannabis
cannabis
cup.
bowls.
Yeah.
They have doctors at the cannabis bowls writing out letters of
And
recommendation.
expos, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
We've had conventions and expos where there's doctors there and you can get it written
And
out
here's
right
the-
at that
here's the-
time.
Here's the bottom line is that in an unregulated environment, you will see unregulated behavior.
Exactly.
And the question is, if we got some smart regulations, we probably wouldn't have this issue with medical marijuana. But it's a really tricky issue because the Medical Board of California, I mean, it's not like California Highway Patrol. They don't have like thousands of
Right.
enforcement resources
There's
standing
three
by.
guys in a room.
Yeah, and they cover the whole state of California, which means that they're probably doing like a circuit. Well, I'll be in Los Angeles in October.
Yeah, but there's such a blatant disregard for that in LA. I mean, there's so many doctors. You go to now you go to Venice Beach and there's no pot shops, but there's like a doctor writing a recommendation every 50 feet.
Right.
You know, that's wrong. Why don't they bust all of those people? Those people aren't on the up and
Well,
down.
again, there's no enforcement measures, and it's something that we've had to deal with.
This
But it was
wasn't
great.
even California.
No,
this
this was
story.
in
How did this guy get
Colorado.
busted?
He had an undercover. I don't know if it was a cop. There was an undercover, either a cop or a medical board operator that came in. It was a 2-minute examination, and he basically just got nailed because he was just, how are you feeling?
The most common way, because I've read these medical board complaints, the most common way these doctors get popped is that they say that they examined the patient in their notes when they didn't. And so you got an undercover investigator there who comes in, the doctor goes, "Hi, oh, okay," signs the letter, gives it to him, and then the doctor writes in their file they did all these things.
Yeah, it didn't happen. This says it in a tape recording. He started when an undercover officer visited his office in Colorado. He wanted to get a medical marijuana card, but did not have any of the required conditions. And it was tape recorded, this meeting, and the doctor asked if the undercover officer had any pain, and the officer told him that he had hurt his ankle several years ago playing basketball in high school. And so the doctor said, "Well, I guess I should look at your ankle then, right?" And so Colorado law requires a bona fide doctor-patient relationship, but the undercover officer's visit only took a matter of minutes. And so that's how this guy got turned. And it's not like that isn't common practice.
Yeah,
we just don't have the undercover people to go into all the doctors.
By California standards, that's major surgery.
Yeah. And once again, Colorado's getting everything, their ducks in a row. They're trying to be legal. They're going to have legal marijuana come hell or high water. It's coming January 1st, and they're trying to get their ducks in a row and to get things straightened out. And we could use a heavy dose of that here.
And we shouldn't knock all the doctors, because there are some doctors who are doing
absolutely not.
There are some really good doctors that
and we shouldn't knock all the dispensary operators
either.
The same way. There's good people trying to do this for the benefit of medical patients, and those people are the people that suffer when bad stories come out about it, when doctors abuse it, when dispensary operators abuse the privilege that they have of operating their dispensary. All of that goes to hurt real patients that really need this medicine. We've talked so many weeks here about how this helps people with autism, with epilepsy, with all kinds of and minor medical problems, backaches, stomach aches. Any reason that it affects you, you are getting affected by the people that are doing it wrong.
Why do you need a prescription in Colorado now?
For the medical use, because there is medical.
The same reason you'll need it here in California.
Isn't it legal to use it medically? I mean,
yeah.
why do you still need a prescription?
No. This is a really interesting
Let's get
thing.
into the science.
What's happening is when these laws get passed to legalize adult use, then really the only medical use that's left that needs to be regulated would probably be use outside the adult use provision.
Children with
autism. or epilepsy or something. You're going to see this supplanted, and what's going to happen then at some point the federal government walks in and they start to regulate this as both an adult intoxicant and a medicine, probably over the counter. And so it's
alcohol has a lot of uses.
Remember, Rexall and Walgreens started out in the 1920s, during Prohibition, selling prescription wine.
Right.
In other words, it was medical wine. Oh, doc, and it's like, you need some Manischewitz. Yeah, and that's
Well, we applaud what's going on in Colorado, because even if it's for recreational use, they're getting their ducks in the row, like we say. And just like there's 20 medical states, pretty soon there's going to be 20 recreational states as well. And so if they're doing their job correctly, as it sounds like they are, then it'll be an example for the rest of us to follow.
Prohibition is falling. And what's going to happen is you want to find out how it's going to fall. There's a really good book called Last Call that Ken Burns made the Prohibition documentary based on. And it really talks about like how alcohol prohibition happened and how it fell apart, and a lot of it parallels cannabis. They're really very, very similar.
You'd think the government wouldn't fall into the same problems, but this one's even thicker.
History does repeat itself.
History does, and you forget about stuff. Let's let's talk about your expertise for a
I
little
think
bit.
we need to go for a break first.
I think not for a few minutes. So let's get into this, and we'll start just what's going on in medicine right now that's interesting to you. What's
Well,
the
what's
science
going on in
that-
cannabis science is trying to make the effects consistent. So the thing is, right now, everybody kind of plays a guessing game. Oh, well, I hope this OG Kush is like my last OG Kush.
That's part of the fun.
It's part of the fun,
But not for a real patient.
Not
that
for
needs
a
it.
patient.
the thing
yeah.
is
It
if
is
you went
fun
into
for
a
us.
wine store and you got a bottle of wine and you took a sip and you had to spit it out because it was so bad, and then the next time it was great, and the next time it was in the middle, and
You wouldn't buy that anymore.
well, it's really tough on, like, when you go into most dispensaries, you're not going in trusting the dispensary always.
Our
You wanna-
dispensary, our patients can
No,
trust
yeah,
us.
sometimes
yeah,
stuff
they
is
trust
just
us.
I'll tell you what
later.
trust. I'll tell you what trust
And
is.
your dispensary,
Yeah,
for
but I'll
sure.
tell you what trust is. But even we deal with this, okay? And it's a really interesting thing is that the patients come in and want to look at the medicine, they want to smell the medicine.
Yeah.
They want to really they're looking under the hood. They're not. They're looking at you like most people look at a used car salesman. It's like, yeah, I believe you. I know you're a good used car dealer. Open up the hood.
Show me the Carfax.
Okay, and the thing about it is that, like, when somebody goes into 7-Eleven to buy Marlboros, God forbid they're still smoking cigarettes, but if they
Right.
do, they know what they're getting
And exactly
Every
Same.
time. And
Yes.
the beer that they're getting is the same.
And so Sierra
every time.
Nevada, you don't do a spit take on it and then go, oh, it's the best beer I've ever had. And that's where this has to go. And it's going to go that way very quickly in Washington and Colorado because these regulatory environments and the consumers will
Want it.
demand. Well, no. What'll happen is the first person who shows up with a consistent product will start to grab market share. And that'll go like this, and then that'll force everybody into line. So it's the difference between the guy with the moonshine and the bottle of Seagram's.
That has the
And
tax
that's-
stamp on it.
And
that
that's
says
the
it's okay.
transition that we're in right now. Right now, it's the, hey, buddy, trust
Yeah.
me.
Hey, and that's all I can get.
It's
so
all I can get. And this
sounds
white
good.
lightning will mess you
Yeah.
up. Okay, Cletus and me, we made it
Yeah.
up in the hills a couple days ago.
I've smoked that weed.
I am going to reinforce the fact that in correctly operating dispensaries, you don't have the guy going, hey,
accredited dispensaries.
try this Jack Herrera, it's going to kick your ass.
But eventually in Tennessee, we're shooting for that.
Exactly. But the thing about it is that there are a lot of very, very conscientious cannabis cultivators out there
Right.
who take extraordinary pride in their ability to do what they do. There are dispensary operators throughout the state of California and throughout the United States who take great care in providing the finest quality product they can provide. My contention is it can be a lot better, and it will be.
And it will be.
And that's the great news.
That's
It's going to
the
be.
thing.
Consumers do ask for, quality. They want that. And that's part of, we're the gatekeepers of that.
Yes.
That's part of what the dispensary operators need to, integrate into. It's not just getting product out, it's getting
Good
quality
product,
product
yes.
out. And then
With
you
predictable
build up,
effects.
Yes, with
you build
predictable
up
effects,
the confidence in your patients that when they come in, they know they're going to get that OG Kush that they've gotten the last 7 times, and it's going to be within a margin of error very similar to the OG Kush that they got the last
And the
time.
thing about it is that it's a really weird thing because what we're hoping right now, the cannabis consumer today hopes to get the quality. What we want to do is establish benchmarks in science so that quality is actually defined. And so the patient
Right.
can come in and goes, I want a high limonene OG Kush. And the person they're talking to knows what they're
What
talking
that
about.
is. That's very important. Let's take a little break and come back and talk about the testing and how that really goes down to the consumer, okay? We're going to break now, and we'll be back with Talking Marijuana.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
To our final segment here on Talking Marijuana, we're talking with Michael Backus, our science guy. Why are you our science guy? What are your credentials to be the guy that knows so much about science?
Let's see. Well, I got into it as a patient who couldn't get the questions I had as a patient answered. And I'd worked with Michael Crichton for 20 years as his technical advisor. I had a biology undergraduate degree, but that didn't. It was just literally wanting answers where I couldn't get them.
And he's one of the only guys that I've known in the 10 years that I've been in this business that really goes deep. A simple answer is never good enough for Michael Backus. You need to know everything, and that's why we come to you when we want to know about science. You're just really...
the thing is, it's a really complex plant. And so the thing is when you've got something that's got 400 ingredients and the interactions of those ingredients are so complex that understanding how cannabis and the different varieties of cannabis work is a lifetime.
And it changes as we get more knowledge, as we get more. You've changed some of the positions that you've taken.
No question. I mean, for example, CBD is a perfect example. So CBD, we used to think CBD was found in the little leaves around the buds. We thought, yeah, that's it. The little leaves around the buds. That's where the CBD is, because we couldn't test. And then we found out, no, that's not true at all. And what's great about this is every year I get to say, damn, I was wrong about that too. But it improves what I know. Right. And it allows me to talk to a patient and say, you know something, you got migraines, you do this, the likelihood it's going to reduce the frequency of your migraines, and that seems to actually start to work. And it's all evidence-based. So you got the evidence or you don't. It's really funny. Everybody's heard the term snake oil.
Yeah.
Very few people know where the word snake oil comes from. Snake oil comes from Seneca, like Seneca, the Native American tribe. Seneca oil. And what it was that people used to say, drink raw petroleum as a medicine. And then they were Seneca oil salesmen.
So my whole life I've been avoiding snake oil for no reason?
Because you're scared of snakes, when in fact you smell it every time you go to the gas station.
There's really nothing better than cold-pressed snake.
Oh, man.
Which is what you get real snake oil.
Real snake. But the point is that we've all been a little bit of the Seneca oil salesman with regards to medical cannabis, in that we didn't know. Now the evidence is starting to accumulate, and increasingly we are starting to know. And what's cool is this is just starting, in the sense that there are rare cannabinoids beyond CBD, like CBD-V and THC-V. THC-V, very interesting cannabinoid.
Only works on vampires.
No, THC-V, instead of giving you the munchies, retards your appetite. Cannabis that gets you high and lets you lose weight, there's a business.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And
we provide that at California Patients Alliance on Melrose in Los Angeles. So come on by and take a look.
Get in line now. Yeah, I can see him going back today and just painting a V in. 18% THC.
We don't do that at California Patients Alliance. I am just joking. Disclaimer.
But the point is that we're learning a lot about how cannabis can be used medicinally and eventually recreationally in ways that's going to be better for people, period. Because the thing is, right now you're seeing a lot of people dab. The problem with dabbing is that the system in your body with which these cannabinoids interact is what's called a homeostatic system. It's like a teeter-totter. And if you take a dose of phytocannabinoids, your body reacts by reducing the number of receptors available. So if you start dabbing and taking a lot, you down-regulate your endocannabinoid system. And that's really unknown. You're out on territory nobody's been out on. And so the thing is that what's scary is don't do too much. Do enough to get the effect you need, and don't go beyond that, because your body's going to react to that overdose by reducing your receptor density.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what that does to you.
I find that dabbers are in two categories. Those that know what you're saying, but operate the way that you're saying, which is take a dab,
Carefully.
enjoy it, go on to other things. Don't sit down and make it a dab session where you just continue.
Yeah,
There are
right.
the other dab user is someone who now has supplemented his intake of cannabis by just using dabs, and so they're
But
constantly.
are we
dabbing.
impressed by somebody literally? I mean, maybe the first year in a fraternity, you're impressed by somebody who can drink a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
very quickly we lose our attachment to that kind of behavior. Because cannabis is non-toxic, we basically, a lot of people wear their tolerance for cannabis like a badge of honor, when in
Correct.
fact, it's just their body reacting to overdosing. Okay? And because it's non-toxic, it doesn't kill
It's
you.
not
People-
lethal.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
No.
Sometimes
but
I'll-
it's true that it brings your tolerance down, because I know I don't like to do it all the time either. Once in a while, because it's the same thing. I don't want to reduce my tolerance for when I do need it, because sometimes I'm in a real pain or I'm uncomfortable and then I do need it as medicine. But it's hard. When you do that a lot, your tolerance goes up, so that you have to do more dabs, or even
Right.
smoking bud doesn't work at all.
So
you're
the-
working against yourself.
So the thing you need to do, if you really want to use science in your favor, is use the least amount of cannabis to get the effect you're looking for, and not a bit more. So understand how cannabis wears off, that for most THC, it's about 90 minutes. If you add CBD, it's going to be about up to 5 hours. Don't dose too often, because it's going to be diminishing effects. And the other thing you have to understand is cannabis effects are somewhat additive. If you start smoking in the morning, every time you smoke, you're actually typically going to get a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is lower your dose throughout the day, and that'll give you that nice straight line that you want, that most people don't even know how to get.
And most people do want that nice straight line. You want to get to where you're feeling the
Right.
effects and feeling comfortable and handleable, and then you want to keep
But
that,
it's the
sustain it.
difference I enjoy. It's the climb.
No. The climb,
You can still climb.
Exactly.
The climb is the best part.
Exactly, and the climb can be the best part if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for the climb, but a lot of people are looking for the climb, looking for a steady thing, and they don't understand how they can't hit it.
Hit it.
And the way they need to hit it is to slowly reduce their dose throughout the day.
Over the day.
And then they'll
Makes sense. It
Some-
totally makes sense.
Once in a
Consider more
while,
or
I'll be at a
less.
party where everybody's passing around, and I'll smoke back to normal. Like I'll smoke so much that I'm completely
You're not
sober
feeling
again.
it.
Like it'll. It's
Yeah, I
it's weird
understand.
how that happens. It's you got to stop smoking to stay.
yeah.
High.
Stop smoking, stay higher.
That's a great song, by the way.
And the
One
other
of
thing
my-
we learned
one of
on
my
this show
favorites.
is eat mangoes.
Eat mangoes.
Eat
before
mangoes, and you're gonna.
Well, no, it's going to be
Tell us
sedative.
the science of
So,
that.
okay, so the idea is that something that's high in the essential oil myrcene that's found in mangoes is responsible for the indica effect of cannabis. So much so that in Dutch pharmacies, they've actually done a kind of a myrcene enhanced version of cannabis as their indica.
Interesting.
Okay, so if you want, so the bottom line is if you get some myrcene in you or some black pepper, which has beta-caryophyllene in it, which is another kind of terpene that works as a cannabinoid, these things all adjust the high. The reason we're talking about these, essential oils produced by the cannabis plant interact with the cannabinoids produced by the cannabis plant to make the effect of that variety. So the reason Trainwreck works like Trainwreck is it's high in myrcene, high in pinene. The reason OG Kush works like OG Kush is it's high in 5 different essential oils and delivers what's called an entourage effect, which is, and actually reduces how quickly you build up cannabis tolerance.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
That's
So
one of
the
the
reason
reasons
that
OG
people-
is so
The
popular.
reason people
Strong,
keep
yeah.
smoking OG is that even though they have THC tolerance, all the terpenes they're getting help them overcome that a little bit.
Oh, so
Interesting.
That's
So,
really interesting.
how do you incorporate mangoes in? You just eat mangoes?
Yeah, if you get myrcene in you at the same time you smoke, you'll get more of a sedative
longer
effect.
and a longer.
A little bit longer, but mainly more sedative. All right, it's going to be about 90 minutes anyway, but it's going to be 90 minutes or more stony couch locking.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Jamba
Let me
juice,
just-
Jamba juice and glass together.
That's
and
amazing.
heat up.
I eat a lot of mangoes. I didn't know. I thought I
Yeah, we
just
just
liked
found out about
mangoes.
this.
It's the mangoes that keep you funny, Dan.
Yes.
Maybe.
so much.
That's
That's what
Yeah.
it does it. It keeps you
Maybe.
funny, and a longer period of time, you're going to be a hysterical guy.
Oh man.
But-
Alright.
but
Keep
this
those
idea-
mangoes coming.
But the thing is that what's great is if you have well-cultivated cannabis, it'll have a lot of these essential oils, and you'll get them at the same time you're getting the cannabinoids. That's why the cannabis experience, if you try to supplement it just with like fruit essential oils, it's not going to have quite the same effect. But if you vape it or smoke it,
Right. It's much better. I'd like to talk to you a little bit before we lose you about the future of testing. It's a big issue in all cannabis industry.
It's a real problem.
And it does seem as if it's always in the conversation, and yet it's not really implemented in many places. What does implementation look like, and what are we looking forward to in the future?
Okay, so what you have is you have an instrument, and that instrument has to be calibrated. And to calibrate that instrument, you need reference standards. In other words, you need a little bit of a known pure compound to shoot in the machine so the machine knows what pure means. Well, guess what? Federal government won't let you get those standards.
Right.
Therefore, you can't calibrate the machines. Therefore, the labs that are testing often don't have calibrated standards and are being hired by dispensaries not to give them bad news.
They give
Right.
Good news. And so what happens is it has a tendency to skew the results. So your 22% Kush all of a sudden becomes a 24% Kush because the lab wants to keep your business. They don't want to tell you that it's actually 18.
Exactly.
18%.
And they have a tendency to create these results creep up. So people say, oh, I've got 35% OG Kush. If you actually thought about that and looked at what the bud and go 1/3 of that is THC?
Straight
No.
up. No.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, so the thing is that we've had result inflation for THC testing. The most important testing is safety screening.
Exactly.
Safety screening tells you if there's mold, if there's bacteria, and if there's poisons
Pesticides,
on your weed. That's it. And that's the most important. And there's an enormous amount of pushback in California from, I'll go and talk to a city about mandating testing. This has to be clean or it can't be sold to patients. And dispensaries will come in and fight against me.
Does it happen at the dispensary level, or does it happen at the farming level?
Is it going
the
to
grow
cost
level?
them money? Who's going
It's
to pay
gonna-
for the testing?
The patient eventually, just like the patient pays
Pays
for
for
the
everything.
bottle and the patient pays for everything. I mean, the truth is that you'll hear the farmers complain, oh, you're going to charge me $100 to test my pound. Well, the thing is that crop testing is the way it's done in regular agriculture. You don't test every bag
Every
of
bit of it,
blueberries. You test a crop of blueberries, and then the testing is very expensive because it's spread over your crop.
So then why wouldn't that be done at a growing level?
It should
And
be.
once it's done,
And
then
it will
it's
be.
done.
And
That's what
so
it
in
doesn't seem like it should
states that
pass
are
to
doing
the-
this, in states that are having regulatory frameworks put in place, that's exactly what's happening. The state is saying the farmers have to have random testing of their products to make sure they're clean.
So on seed to sale states like Colorado,
Exactly.
that's how it works.
And it's the way it should
it's
work.
the way it should work.
It's the way it should
Absolutely.
work.
Absolutely.
If you have people showing up with a backpack of unknown origin,
No.
you don't know if it was grown in Mexico or
In a
Colinga.
closet?
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about this in a state that voted against labeling genetically altered
Right.
foods.
We
So
have
it's-
problems
we
in
have
our state. We
heads
voted
up our
against
ass pretty far.
regulating marijuana throughout the state. We still don't have regulations in the state. So we're facing a lot of regulatory problems.
Everybody's going to face regulatory problems, but if you see a clear outcome, and the clear outcome is we need clean cannabis, which just seems kind of basic and shouldn't be argued by really
Anybody.
No,
Okay?
absolutely.
Because it's fewer emergency room visits,
Of course.
fewer police resources, cleaning up messes from people getting poisoned by stuff. I mean, it's
Do we have emergency room visits for marijuana at this point?
absolutely without question, primarily from edibles. Every state that's legalized
Edibles.
is
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely
And the
right.
reason is
You're right.
because they're not labeled with what's in
Correctly,
them. You
yeah.
go in and you're supposed to do the algebra. Remember algebra class where x equals something?
Right.
Well, when you go into a club and it says, I've got a 9x brownie, you're supposed to solve for x by eating it, and that's wrong.
Right.
It should say right on the label what's in it.
And how many doses
And how
for
much is-
normal, whatever we
Right.
consider normal at this point to
Right.
be. We are out of time.
We need for you to come back.
So we
Michael,
will have you
talk to us
back,
some
Mike, because
more.
we love talking to you. You're just constantly
Your world
filling
of
in the blanks for
information.
us, and we really appreciate your time
thanks for
today.
having
Thanks
me.
for coming in, and Dan, thanks for
Yami,
being
yeah.
here, and Yami, thanks for being here, and Pura Vida.
Pura vida. Go
Pura vida.
Dodgers.
Go Dodger
Dodgers.
Blue.
Go Doyers.
And go Doyers.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick. Hey, everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.